Good evening, everyone. So, in this live session, we will discuss the Indian Express newspaper, right? So, let us start with the Indian Express and the headlines. So, first, as you can see, that there's a headline called PM starts state visit to US. So, basically, this article talks about that Sri Narendra Modi visited US for International Yoga Day celebration, right? Now, this article has already been covered in the Indian Express Explained section, so we'll discuss this particular article later. So let us start with the first article, which talks about Gandhi Peace Prize to Gita Press. Now, आप अगर इस article को पढ़ोगे, तो you'll witness that there are two important issue here. First one is that Gandhi Peace Prize, and the second one is the controversy behind this particular prize. So first, let us discuss the important current events, right? So Gita Press has been awarded the prestigious Gandhi Peace Prize for 2021. Now, this Peace Prize has been very much controversial this year. As you can see, that there's a minister called Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary. He is a member of the jury as the leader of the Congress in Lok Sabha, and he was kept in the dark about this decision. So he said that he was not being invited to any of the meeting of the jury and learned about Gita Press being selected for the award through the media. Now, the controversy here is that, as you can see, that this article is continued on page 14. So let's go to the page 14 first. So the controversy here is that the minister has said that he was not being invited to decide even this particular peace prize. Now, as you can see, this article also mentioned the code of procedure for the Gandhi Peace Prize. Now, this particular procedure says it was instituted by the central government in 1995. The awardee is selected by a 5-member jury, which is the jury is chaired by the Prime Minister. Its other members are Chief Justice of India or the leader of the largest opposition party in Lok Sabha and the two eminent persons. Now, in this case, the leader of the opposition party is Adhir Chaudhary. Now, according to the code also, the jury can take the final decision on the awardee at a meeting only when at least 3 of its members are present. Now, as Chaudhary, the minister itself has said that before selecting the final nominee for the prestigious and outstanding award, there is a set norm and procedure whereby the leader of the largest opposition party is invited and allowed to express his or her view. Now, the main important point here is that what are the factual things about Gita Press and the Gandhi Peace Prize itself. So Gandhi Peace Prize awards are generally distributed for social, economic, and political transformation through nonviolence. It was instituted in the year 1995 on the occasion of the 125th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. It was a tribute to his ideals and the contributions to humanity. And some of the factual details about Gita Press is that it was established in 1923 by Jaya Dayal Goenka and Hanuman Prasad Poddar. It is one of the world's largest publishers of Hindu religious texts, having published around 42 crores books in 14 languages, including 16.2 crore copies of Bhagavad Gita itself. So these are the factual things that you should know about the Gandhi Peace Prize and the Gita Press. So as you can see also that there are certain important points in the article itself, and you have to cover all the factual details about these particular prizes. Now let us see the next news. So the next news is, as you can see here, that with 329, Maharashtra has most pending adoption cases. So इससे पहले मैं आपको एक बात और बताता हूँ that recently there's an amendment in the adoption cases. So earlier, the district court decide the adoption cases, but government has actually transferred these cases to the district magistrate of a particular district. Now they will decide the adoption cases now. This news, as you can see here, talks about Maharashtra. So this is state-centric news. But as you can see here, that it mentions some of the agencies, which is, first one is CARA, which is also known as Central Adoption Resource Authority. Now, the important particular point here is CARA agency. Now, CARA, which is known as Central Adoption Resource Authority, is a statutory body of Ministry of Women and Child Development. It basically deals with inter-country adoptions in accordance with the provisions of the Hague Convention, which was ratified by the government of India in 2003 itself. Now, CARA, as you can see here, that it primarily deals with adoption of orphan, abandoned, and surrendered children through its associated recognized adoption agencies. Now, in India, a child can be placed with a family under the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956, Guardians and Wards Act 1890, and Juvenile Justice Act 2000. The mandatory registration of childcare institutions and linking to CARA has been provided in the Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2015. Now, why I mentioned this particular agency, CARA, is because there are lots of amendments that have been done in the recent years with the CARA itself, right? So there is also called Child Welfare Institution, right? Child Welfare Committees. So Child Welfare Committees का भी composition change किया गया. Composition as in, if you have to appoint anyone in the Child Welfare Committees, you have to decide, basically district magistrate will appoint these particular names in the Child Welfare Committees. And the primary role of district magistrate is to conduct these appointments very fairly, because these are the persons that are responsible for the molestation of these children in their districts, right? So as you can see here in this article, you have to just read about the agencies, which is CARA, some of the acts, which is Juvenile Justice Act, right? Now, next, let's talk about central team to visit UP Bihar to help states tackle heat wave. Now, as you can see here in this article, आप लोग को पता होगा जैसे कि in North India especially that heat wave is going on, and especially in UP Bihar, गर्मी लू बहुत ज्यादा है. So that is why the central team have visited these particular states to tackle heat wave. And again, this particular article is also there in the Indian Express explained section, and that particular section will explain all the things related to heat wave, right? Now, next short factual article here is about first mRNA booster shot against Omicron gets DCGI approval. Now, India's drug controller, Central Drug Standard Control Organization, which is also known as CDSCO, has granted emergency use authorization for the Omicron-specific mRNA-based booster vaccine. It is developed by Genova Biopharmaceuticals under the mission COVID Suraksha, the Department of Biotechnology. Again, you just have to read all these factual details about this particular case. That it is the first mRNA booster that covers Omicron virus, and that gets DCGI approval. Who is the one who developed this particular vaccine? So it is Genova Biopharmaceuticals. And what was the mission that called under this? It is known as COVID Suraksha, Department of Biotechnology. Now, in the editorial page, there are two articles which are very important. So let us discuss one by one. So first article talks about flight to future. So basically this article talks about two aircraft deals, Indigo and Air India, point to the potential of India's aviation market, but fears of a duopoly remain. So in this article, actually, what happens is that there are two aircraft deals that talks about basically conducted by Indigo and Air India. And they talked about what are the future implications of these deals. As you can see here, that it also mentioned that India is currently world's fastest growing aviation market and become the third biggest market globally in terms of the domestic traffic. Now, again, the static part here in this article, which you have to understand that there are certain policies that are related to aviation market. The recent policy which relates to aviation market is the Emergency Credit Link Guarantee Scheme, right? What does it mean? So it basically means, 1 minute. So Emergency Credit Link Guarantee Scheme. So Emergency Credit Link Guarantee Scheme, originally it was a part of Atmanirbhar Bharat package after the COVID-19 issue. And it was basically aimed at reviving the MSME industry, which was basically hit due to COVID, which was making losses during the COVID. So it was initiated to revive all those MSME industries. But recently, this particular scheme applies to aviation industry. Why this particular scheme applied to this aviation industry? Because the aim is to, yes, the aim is to basically revive the aviation market, right? So this particular scheme is very relevant for you with related to civil aviation industry, right? Now, let's talk about next news, which is the new asana, the new asana. So basically it talks about the yoga thing. So as you already know that June 21 is declared as the International Day of Yoga, and our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has visited United States of America to celebrate this particular event. So this year, the International Day of Yoga being celebrated at the UN headquarters in New York with our Prime Minister, right? Has a special significance in this particular event. And as you already know that June 21 is declared as the International Day of Yoga. Now, this particular article discuss so many relevant things, so many factual things that you have to read for your examination purpose. So let us first understand what are the factual things that you have to read in this article, right? So first one is that Indian Council for Cultural Relation and the Ministry of External Affairs with the support of Ayush Ministry have been promoting yoga. So आपको यहाँ पे ये देखना है कौन कौन से काउंसिल कौन से मिनिस्ट्री प्रमोट कर रहे हैं योगा को, because yoga is very relevant as you already know, right? Because obviously Prime Minister is also promoting yoga at a very global level, right? Second factual thing is the WHO, World Health Organization, in collaboration with the Ministry of Ayush and major yoga institution, has developed a new mobile app called M-Yoga to educate people about the therapeutic benefits of yoga. Then WHO has already initiated the process of developing a benchmark document for standards in yoga training. The government of India already established 150 Swami Vivekanand district yoga health centers and 1,25,000 Ayush health and wellness centers. Now, the Department of Ayush, in collaboration with NIMHANS and S. Vyasa University, has developed a tele-yoga advisory. 6 central universities have started full-fledged departments of yoga, and over 30% private, state, and deemed universities have started either certificate diploma or UG/PG programs in yoga since 2015. The first full-fledged yoga university, which is Vivekananda Yoga University in California, started a master's program in 2019. Now, you just have to learn all these factual details which are given in this article, because you can't just predict anything. Clat can ask any such questions in your examinations. Now, the next part is that India is not only promoting yoga at a very global level, it is also creating a legislative framework. They are also creating standards for yoga accessories, because people are starting to adapt these particular things. Now, as you can see here, that yoga asanas have been included as a sport in Khelo India as well as the national games. India has also taken the lead in establishing National Yogasana Sport Federation and World Yogasana Federation. And to strengthen good industrial practices, the Bureau of Indian Standards under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs also initiated the process of creating for yoga accessories. So particularly in this article, what actually the author conveys there is that yoga has a very special role in our country, and also our government is promoting this particular thing at a very global level. So if we are creating a platform for these particular things, we have to give them a specific standards for these things. So that is why we are creating uh, yoga standards as well. And this is started by Bureau of Indian Standards. So you just have to remember all these ministries name, because these are under the umbrella topic called yoga, right? This is very important article, because there are so many relevant factual things that are mentioned in this article, right? Now let's go back to next topic. So now this explain page, as you already know, that explain page is the most important page of the Indian Express, and there are three articles that we will discuss here. First one is heat wave, second is India US, and third one is the environment related topic, which is born climate meet, right? So let us start with the heat wave. So as you already know that heat wave death, why a heat stroke kills, and how to stay safe. This article explains about heat wave, what are the different concepts related to heat wave, what you should do if you have catch this particular thing, and what are the preventions that you can have. So first of all, this article mentioned two conceptual things. First one is heat exhaustion, and second one is heat stroke. So, as per this article, heat exhaustion means basically we all feel drained and tired after stepping out on an extremely hot day. And this is referred to as heat exhaustion. And it happens when the body sweats excessively to keep the core temperature low. But as per the doctors, people who come in with heat strokes are the ones to worry about. Now, what is heat stroke? So, a heat stroke happens when the ambient temperature is so high that the body is unable to sweat to regulate the core temperature, which shoots up to 40 degrees Celsius. It can affect the brain, making a person foggy, drowsy, and in severe cases may also lead to a person going into a coma. It can lead to kidney and liver damage as well. Now, what are the things that you should do, right? So there are particular some symptoms that are mentioned in this article. So the symptoms are the body temperature is very high, but they are not sweating at all. They are feeling drowsy, they are vomiting, they are not passing urine, and they are not breathing properly. Now, the ones that are vulnerable to these things are old population and the very young ones. But as you can see here, that this article also says that, however, this does not mean that young people cannot get heat stroke. It can happen at any age. Now, what to do to prevent a heat stroke? So basically, to prevent heat stroke, it's better to avoid stepping out in direct sunlight, especially between noon and 3 p.m. And also, the National Disaster Management Authority says that people should try to keep their homes cool by using curtains or shades, and to keep body temperature low by using a damp cloth or taking cold bath frequently. So in this article, what you should learn is what is actually heat wave, right? What is heat wave? Then you should learn about what is heat exhaustion. Then what is the thing to worry about? So doctor said that you should worry about the heat wave. What are the symptoms that are relevant here, and what to do to prevent a heat stroke as per the NDMA also. Now, the next article talks about India-US relationship, trust and necessity. So as you already know, the headline also talks about that Indian Prime Minister visited the United States of America for again to celebrate the International Day of Yoga itself at New York, right? Now, this article mentions some of the interesting things. So the important thing in this article here is that these three agreements between India and US, and again the relevance of these two particular countries. So these two things are very important here. So as you already know that Russia is a very good friend of India itself. आपको खुद पता है कि over the last 16 months, as you can see here, that India has not criticized Russia's actions, and you can all understand that why India is not criticizing Russia's action. A, because in India is a very friendly terms with Russia, as you can see here. Secondly, that through Russia, we get so many agreements. For example, Washington has shown an understanding for India's complex ties with Russia. It's more than 60% dependence on Russia defense supplies and its purchase on Russian oil at cheaper rates. Right? So basically, Russia हमें क्या दे रहा है? Russia हमें oil देता है and also in a very cheaper rate. Right? Defense cooperation, maybe India and Russia is very strong. Russia supplies so many defense equipments to India also. So and this is the reason why US also understand that India and Russia is a very good friend. As you already know that there's a sanction called CAATSA sanction. Right? Now CAATSA sanction, आपको पता होगा कि US ने इंडिया को exempt कर दिया for this sanction. Why? Because India ने first of all कहा था कि because we are getting these defense things from Russia because we have to counter China. And also US has granted CAATSA sanction exemption to India itself, right? Now, the next important thing in this article here is that these three agreements, right? So what are the three agreements here? So first agreement, the three agreements called Logistics Support Agreement, Communications Interoperability and Security Memorandum of Agreement, and Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement for Geospatial Cooperation. Now, these are referred as the foundational agreements which the US signed with countries with which it has close military ties. So you just have to understand what are the basic objectives of these three agreements, because again, as you can see that this article mentioned these three agreements, especially because India, it is in relation with India-US relations, right? So first agreement, which is Logistic Support Agreement, Logistic Support Agreement. So basically the aim of this agreement is to give access to both countries to designated military facilities on either side for the purpose of refueling. Second agreement, which is Communication Compatibility and Security Agreement, it allows India to procure, transfer specialized equipment for encrypted communications for US origin military platforms. Currently, these platforms use commercially available communication system. And the third one, which is Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, it largely pertains to geospatial intelligence and sharing information on maps and satellite images for defense. This agreement, the last one, BECA, which is, it also provides Indian military systems with a high quality GPS to navigate and missiles with real-time intelligence to precisely target the adversary. It will also give access to topographical and aeronautical data and products that will aid navigation and targeting. So again, you just have to remember these particular agreements, these three agreements, because as you know that these are in relation with India and US, and also because Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited to US. So basically what we covered here with respect to India in this newspaper is that Indian Prime Minister has visited USA. Why? To celebrate yoga, International Day of Yoga. So you have to understand what is yoga and what is the main context of yoga here, because International Day of Yoga is on 21st June today, and the relevance, the national policies, the schemes related to yoga, because Indian government is promoting this particular thing, and the India-US relation with respect to these three agreements. That's it. Now, coming to third article, which is at Bonn Climate Meet, Old Conflicts and Some Forward Movement, right? So basically this agreement talks about Bonn Climate Meet. Now, this was not very much successful, but again, one thing that these countries did actually manage to wrap up in this climate meet was that the final and third round of technical discussion on global stock take, or you can see here is that GST, it is termed as GST, global stock take. Now, it was mandated by 2015 Paris Agreement that GST, global stock take, is an exercise which is aimed at assessing the progress in the fight against climate change and deciding ways and means to enhance global action to bridge the adequacy gap. The Paris Agreement says GST must be conducted every 5 years starting in 2023. So you just have to remember, this particular thing, that Paris Agreement says GST must be conducted every 5 years starting in 2023. Now, दो चीज यहाँ पे बहुत relevant है, which is the case of developing and developed countries, right? So there is a protocol called Kyoto Protocol, which talks about that there is a difference between developing countries and the developed countries. Now, what is the difference? Now, in that protocol, developing countries like India ने बोला ये कि अगर आप कोई भी बाइंडिंग emission cap लगा रहे हो, कोई भी emission cap लगा रहे हो, so it should not be equal to developed countries, because these countries have already been developed. And why these countries are developed? Because they emit so much gases in the past, so much emissions in the past, right? So that is why in Kyoto Protocol, India said that the deadline of developing countries and developed countries should differ. Why? Because developing countries need more time to emit and to become a developed country. Now, in this article, Australia has said something. Now, Australia talks about the responsibility of developed countries in causing global warming. Now, these countries are known as Annex 1 countries because these are mentioned in the 1992 UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. So, UNFCCC is a convention that was that came up in the year 1994, but it was discussed in 1992 summit. And this particular convention talks about the atmospheric change. This particular convention talks about climate change, right? Now, Australia argued that the historical emissions happened at a time when there was no alternative to fossil fuel-based energy resources. It also pointed out that since 1992, about 57% of CO2 emissions had come from non-Annex 1 countries. It said that 70% of the incremental warming since 1992 due to emissions from CO2, methane, and sulfur dioxide had come from non-Annex 1 countries, right? So again, the controversy here is that there's a difference ideology of developing and developed countries. Now, developing countries ये बोल रही है इस climate summit में that we need some assistance from developed countries, we need money from developed countries, and again developed countries क्या कर रही है? तो वो टाल रही है इन सब चीजों को. Developed countries is saying that we are not the only one that contributes global warming. Again, as you can see here, that Australia is saying too much things about these issues, right? The money matters relevance here is that again, India का कहना क्या है? Now, India is saying, as you can see here, India said they would be able to act more like, for example, developing countries would be able to act more if international support in the form of money and technology transfer was made available. Now, developed countries are under an obligation to support the implementation of climate action plans of developing countries through money and tech transfer. But money has been in short supply, right? And this is the issue why there's a dispute between developing and developed countries. COP27 में भी आप देखोगे तो यही बात हुई थी, लॉस एंड डैमेज फंड पे बात हुई थी. उससे पहले क्या हुआ था? पाकिस्तान में फ्लड आया था एंड पाकिस्तान क्लेम्ड लीगल कॉम्पनसेशन, बेसिकली कॉम्पनसेशन मांगा था पाकिस्तान ने फॉर दैट फ्लड. किससे मांगा था? अगेन डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज से मांगा था. सो अगेन दिस इज अ मेजर इशू दिस ईयर एंड यू हैव टू read all the related articles related to these particular issue. कोई भी ऐसा इशू आता है डेवलपिंग और डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में related to environment, you have to cover that particular article. So for your homework, I should say that you have to remember what is Kyoto Protocol, read about Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement. These two things are very important for the environment law, environment news itself, right? Now, let's discuss the next topic. So in the economy section, one article which is very important, others are not much important for your examinations. So first, which is important to hear is that RBI defends compromise settlement, said lender to exercise discretion. So again, हुआ क्या यहाँ पे? सो आरबीआई ने अभी रिसेंटली एक सर्कुलर लाया. सर्कुलर में उन्होंने बेसिकली ये बोला कि बैंक्स जो है, ये जो सब भी बैंक सेटलमेंट जो ये कर रही है, उसने बैक किया, आरबीआई ने बैक किया बैंक्स के सेटलमेंट प्रोसेस को. राइट नाउ आरबीआई इज सेइंग दैट बैंक्स हैव थ्री ऑप्शंस. राइट, they have the IBC code also to settle the disputes. बट हो क्या रहा है, कई बार बैंक्स को वन टाइम सेटलमेंट करना पड़ता है अपने कस्टमर्स के पास. नाउ दिस आर्टिकल आल्सो टॉक्स अबाउट willful defaulters. So you have to understand what is willful defaulter. So willful defaulters are those borrowers who failed to repay loans despite having the capacity to make the payment. Now again, the issue here is that why RBI is saying that he's back, why RBI is backing these particular incidents. So RBI said again that banks has the discretion to go into the IBC code, but the main problem here in the banking systems is that banks have to think about maximizing their recovery process. So if bank thinks that one time settlement is the process जहां पे आप maximize कर सकते हो अपना recovery, so banks does that because it is the discretion of the bank itself. आप देखोगे इसमें आरबीआई की सर्कुलर में यही लिखा हुआ है कि बैंक के पास चांस होता है, बैंक के पास ऑप्शन है. एंड बैंक का प्राइमरी रोल क्या है? बैंक का प्राइमरी रोल ये है कि वो मैक्सिमाइज कर सके रिकवरी. बिकॉज इफ यू डोंट हैव कैश, इफ यू डोंट हैव मनी, मनी मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट काम ही नहीं करेगा. बिकॉज बैंक्स मेक मनी बाय मनी मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट. मनी मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट. Now, through money multiplier effect itself, RBI saying, or even banks makes money, right? And again, the problem here is that how these banks make money. कैसे ये पैसे बनाएंगे अगर willful defaulters बार बार ऐसे ही करें, one time settlement करते जाएं? Banks will have to initiate the process of legal things, right? So IBC is a code here. IBC supplements this thing, है ना. आईबीसी इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी कोड बनाया ही इसीलिए गया है टू मेक टाइमली सेटलमेंट्स, टाइमली डिफॉल्टर्स को पकड़ा जाए. राइट, सो दिस आर्टिकल टॉक्स अबाउट आरबीआई recent notification, recent notification that RBI said, and therefore it backs the compromise settlements. Right, this article was also discussed in the yesterday newspaper itself. कल वाली न्यूज़पेपर में भी ये पर्टिकुलर चीज आया था. ठीक है, सो दिस वाज ऑल अबाउट द इंडियन एक्सप्रेस न्यूज़पेपर. आपको मेन कंटेंट, आपको देखो, आपको बस मेन कंटेंट यहाँ से ये निकालना है कि व्हाट आर द रेलेवेंट थिंग्स, क्या कॉन्सेप्चुअल पार्ट है इनमें से. राइट, मेन कॉन्सेप्चुअल पार्ट अगर आप निकाल लोगे तो सब कुछ रेलेवेंट एग्जामिनेशन में जो भी आता है वो आप समझ जाओगे. फॉर एग्जांपल कोई ये वाला आर्टिकल अगर आप देखो, न्यू आसना, तो मैंने क्या बताया आपको, योगा के बारे में आपको ज्यादा पढ़ना है. राइट, फिर फ्लाइट टू फ्यूचर है, वहां क्या आप देखोगे, द न्यू स्कीम रिलेटेड टू सिविल एविएशन इंडस्ट्री विच इज इमरजेंसी क्रेडिट लिंक गारंटी स्कीम. राइट, क्या एम है इसका? टू रिवाइव द एविएशन इंडस्ट्री. बट ये आया फर्स्ट कब था? ये आया था, इट वाज फर्स्ट इनिशियली आया क्यों था? ये एमएसएमई इंडस्ट्री के लिए आया था, बिकॉज एमएसएमई कोविड के टाइम बंद हो गई थी, प्रॉफिट खत्म हो गया था, लॉस मेकिंग हो गया था. तो बेसिकली टू रिवाइव दीज इंडस्ट्रीज, इमरजेंसी क्रेडिट लिंक गारंटी स्कीम को लाया गया, अंडर विच थिंग, आत्मनिर्भर भारत पैकेज. राइट, so these are just the factual things. So you just have to understand the conceptual part and the static part and just the current incidents, right? Factual things. So thank you so much for this analysis, right?